K-Wave 6 Radio and our host Kirk Spencer welcome you to our show bringing positive messages to today's world. And now, here's Kirk.
Hello and welcome back to K-Wave 6 Radio. Today my guest is an old favorite of mine. It's not to say anything about her age. We've been knowing each other for quite some time. And we always just get into conversations and we would talk a whole lot more, but this woman is so very, very active. And you're going to get to find out something about this. This is the second time I've had Belinda Farrell on the show today. Actually, she was on the older show, which was running by the name of Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio, which is one of the reasons why I changed it to K-Wave 6 Radio. That was just too long of a name. But she is back, and we're going to talk a little bit about her life and what got her to where she is, so it can be an inspiration to, especially to women, men as well, but especially to women who are just going, I want to do something more with my life, and how she did it, and the things that she's experienced and still experiencing in her life. And she has a special, something that's very, well, at least in my experience, is very unique about her and what she is doing these days, which we'll get into the second half of the show. But we're going to start with the book that she has written, which still makes me chuckle at the title. The name of her book, and you can find this on her website and in Amazon, and if there's any place else, she'll tell you about that as well. The name of her book is Find Your Friggin Joy. Now, that always makes me chuckle. You can find this on her website, which is hunahealing.com. It's HUNAHEALING, all one word, .com. And what she's going to be doing next week, especially when never mind, I won't go there. I'll let her go there. She does this every year. She goes off from California to Hawaii and spends a month swimming with the dolphins. And if you want to have something that's really great, there's a great experience. But without further ado, welcome to K-Wave 6 Radio, Belinda Farrell.
Mahalo. It's so good to be back with you, Kirk. You're such a kick. Kirk is a kick.
Oh, well, thank you.
You can tell I like to laugh. So.
Oh, yes. Well, that's part of the show. If you can't laugh and talk about what's important, I don't want you on the show.
I know. Oh, well, thank you for that introduction.
Oh, well, thank you for being back on the show. And yeah, I had to ask you back on the show because we had so much fun doing this last year. So it's like, got to have Belinda back. So I'm glad you accepted.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And if I can, help anybody out there from my experiences and from going through, the trials and tribulations that life seems to give us from one time to the next, that's just my joy. My joy. I guess I can start with just, how did I get to this place all these years? I was raised in a Catholic convent, so I was really tried from early on to be put into a box and to be afraid, and I really just never quite went with that program. To say the least, I remember going to confessional and watching, the little screen that the priest, has in front of you when you're telling your confession, and seeing there was a little hole there, and I peeked in and saw that the father was reading the comic papers and not really listening to what I was saying. And I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I think from that moment on I thought, wow, if he's not taking me seriously, how can I take this seriously? And so I just really kind of came to my own conclusions. And now, I even teach forgiveness, but how we forgive ourselves through the higher self. So it again, it always kind of becomes a precursor, to what you're going to do later in life, and you're always refining and trying to find the truth, trying to find what's really true. And I got expelled from Catholic school in eighth grade, so that kind of said that I was really not following the protocol, I guess.
Right.
I've always been a little bit of a rebel and kind of doing things my own way because, that's what I think we're supposed to do. We're supposed to find our truth. And I was married.
One get kicked out of Catholic school in the 8th grade, especially as one is, I'm going to say this tongue-in-cheek, as sweet as you.
Oh, well, in 8th grade, I guess, I was discovering boys, and you really can't do that in Catholic school. At that time, at that place, it was not considered permissible. So I was caught walking home from school with a boy who lived in my neighborhood, and they had neighborhood watch for the nuns.
Grief.
I know. Well, that's what happened. And so they said, we just can't invite her to come back. She's just creating too much trouble. So my mother took me out and put me in a public school for the first time in my life in 9th grade, and my whole world opened up, and I found drama. I found expressing myself on stage. I had a magnificent acting teacher who was encouraging me to, go do auditions in Hollywood. But my mother and my family were very fearful of everything. My mother didn't drive a car. So, I still was like pulled back a lot because I couldn't be out on my own. You have to have support to get out there and do these things. But I studied and I enjoyed it and, got into high school and had a normal kind of high school of associating with boys and activities and was very, very active. And just really that was kind of the happiest time of my life until I went to Berkeley and just got into the free speech movement. That was during the time of Vietnam. We were really expressing ourselves during that time. And I guess I was kind of afraid of, upsetting the apple cart, but yet I would still try to push it a little bit. And I would watch these people stand up on their big soapboxes and, say that this isn't right or the government isn't right and really just be brutalized for it. The police would come and throw them down and club them. And it was just awful to witness that, and I was in college during that time. But, I got married. Before that, the CIA was doing a little job on me and trying to recruit me. I think they liked the idea that I had gone to Berkeley and was kind of a rebellious person at the time, but they recruited me so that I would work in Spain. I was majoring in English and Spanish, and I would be a covert agent over there. Mm-hmm. But it took about a year for all of this clearance to come through. They sent me to Washington, blah, blah, blah. It didn't work out. I didn't want to go with them. I didn't want to be, kind of shelved in a little apartment by myself with no permission to speak to other people, just doing your job. It wasn't my personality.
Yeah, going back to Catholic school.
Yeah, in a sense it was, only more dangerous. They had guns.
Yeah, no nuns to watch over you.
No, yeah, the guns replaced the nuns. So, but they got me to Washington, and when I didn't go with them, I got a job working on Capitol Hill for Senator Charles H. Percy, and that's where I met my then husband, who was going to be my husband for 18 years. Mm-hmm. So I believe there's always this kind of divine connection that we have to kind of make do with what we didn't do maybe in a prior lifetime. Like I had to finish some business that I had with this gentleman and finally break away for the first time and be on my own. And it was a great lesson. I had 2 wonderful children, and but then I finally broke away when I was 40 years old. And as long as I said, as long as I did what I was told in this marriage, it wasn't a partnership, But as long as I, followed his orders, everything was fine. But it was that I grew up and I realized, no, this isn't fine. This is abuse. And my spirit was not being honored. And so when you come to that realization, when you start to really listen to, what that little voice inside is saying, and you're not being fulfilled, your soul is being dragged down. And you're here to advance your soul. I didn't know all those things then. I just knew I had to break out.
Let me pause you there for a minute. I don't want to stop you. I want to pause you. Because you're talking about a lot of stuff all at one time. But I want to take just what you just talked about and break it down into 2 or 3 little parts here. One, you were talking about, even though this still exists in our present-day culture, it doesn't matter what part of the world you live in. It can be in the United States, Canada, whatever. But there are still people with that same mentality of what was very common even in the United States and Europe at that time, was women stayed at home, they were housewives, and they raised the children. And you just do what your husband told you to do, take care of the house, take care of the children, and basically a woman got an allowance. Your ex-husband was a doctor, I believe you said it was before.
Right.
So, yes, he's taking care of all of the responsibilities in the house and all that kind of stuff, even though you had a college degree and the government was looking to hire you to do something because you have the ability to do it. Your husband still was in that old world setting of just do what I tell you to do and everything will be fine.
Right. It was my job to make him happy.
Yeah.
That's what I found out later. Because he was not a happy person, but it was my job to make him happy. And that's impossible. Everybody has to find their own happiness.
Well, exactly. So the 2 things is just he's from the old world and is still existing today. And at 40 years old, which is part of what I want to have, if there are women that are listening to this show, is listening to her. She took it at 40 years old and just went, I can do something better. So if you don't mind, continue from there.
Yes. Well, it was like bursting out of an egg, really, literally just kind of making up for lost time. I felt that even though I had been somewhat free. I mean, I loved to play. I loved to ride bikes. I was very active in tennis. I wasn't free inside myself until I got this divorce. And the first teacher that came my way was Tony Robbins, and he was tooting fire walking. I thought, oh my gosh, well, if I can walk on these coals, I wonder what else I can do in my life. And that was literally the first time this huge metaphor kind of popped inside me. And what Tony teaches you, that if you say you can't do something, then you must do it. You must do it.
Okay.
Because the first thing that came up for me is, I thought, well, what would I like to do that I've never done since I'm walking on these coals? I mean, what else can I do? And it came up that I wanted to drive a race car. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I can't do that. I don't even know how to drive a stick shift. Well, then, of course, if I can't, I must. I must find a way to see if I can drive a race car. And so then I would start asking questions, and then enrolled in this Grand Prix road racing course out in Sonoma at the time. And it was called Sears Point Raceway at the time. And I was scared to death. But I knew that I said I couldn't, but I must, and then you will. And so the following year, I finally saved up enough money, because it was a 4-day Grand Prix road racing course. I was the only girl. Scared to death. I told him, I don't know anything. So just pretend that I'm just this sponge here sitting down, because half of the time you're in a classroom learning the physics of racing and the physics of what happens to the car during, large speeds and bursts of circles. And anyway, we're learning a lot of physics. And I found that I loved it and that I had some talent. And I won some races there, and so they hired me to drive for Buick and Cadillac the following year, and it was just like a dream come true.
We're going to pause you right there. because I remember some of the story, and I want you to go into a little bit more details. But right now, we're going to take a break. So everyone, stay with us. We're going to come back with my guest today of Belinda Farrell, and we're going to continue on with her racing and tell you some things that she used to do that you may have seen if you're old enough to remember those days. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Chad C. Meek, executive producer of Giant Rock the Movie, the greatest UFO story never told. You're listening to K-Wave 6 radio show with the illustrious Kirk Spencer, who just might be as crazy as me.
Hi, and welcome back to K-Wave 6. Again, my guest today is Belinda Farrell. During the break, we just got into too much laughter and so much fun, but we're going to continue on with her racing experience and how she got hired, and some things that, if you probably look it up, I don't know, I haven't looked it up myself on the internet, but YouTube's got everything. You could probably find her in some commercials. So, Belinda, continue on from there. You got hired by Buick and Cadillac.
I did, and they said, would you be interested in driving some cars in some beautiful locations and getting paid for it? And it was like a no-brainer. So I went with my teacher that had been teaching me all of the driving skills, and we spent 2 weeks in upstate New York, and it was like something had just broke through with me, and I realized I had some talent in this area. So when I came back to California, they created, the racetrack created a racing course for me to teach me how to do speed, sliding, 180s, 360s, terrorist driving, and just hone my skills. And then I started getting hired to go out and do commercials, and I mean, it was almost 10 years that I was doing this with my partner. And of course, some of the stunts that we did, I'd never done before, so I used my hypnosis and past life regression skills to see the event, to see the stunt perfectly executed. And then I would do it, and there would be no problem. It's like practicing the shot, for an athlete. They practice the shot over and over and over again, and then when you get into the game, you actually do it perfectly. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I learned, and it does work. And so it works for anything, like seeing even illness be eliminated, seeing yourself perfectly healthy. It led to that later on when I collapsed with herniated discs and spinal injury. I had to really see myself climbing trees again. Mm-hmm. So that my unconscious mind would get excited because it's just a computer. And so you're like a pharmacy. Your mind is talking to it all the time. So I started doing that in my stunt work and then carried it throughout my entire life. I'm still doing that. And anybody can do that once you start to realize how powerful your mind is and how your free will affects the emotions of your body. So I had a great career doing the stunt driving, but I was an adrenaline junkie, and I would never really rest. I didn't really know how to listen to my body. I was learning about the Huna during that time. I would go to Hawaii, and I would get advanced training in hypnosis and past life regression work. And then when I started to hear about this forgiveness process, my total alertness came on board, because I thought, wow, this sounds like the icing on the cake. If you can get inside yourself and pull up all this file cabinet of all your past DNA and anything that was negating you, you would take the pressure off of your body, to eliminate that from your body. And then wouldn't it make sense that your body could work better when it wasn't holding on to all that stuff? Mm-hmm. So I started to do this, forgiveness process. It had to do with breathing, taking deep breaths and allowing the unconscious mind to open up and release some of these memories that had been trapped inside. And then sure enough, eventually I collapsed. I'd been racing bikes, I had been rollerblading, I'd been just staying up late, just doing. And that's what a fire sign does. I'm a fire sign. Gosh, it's one of our burdens that we take on with us. So I had to learn how to really just narrow my focus and not try to do 12 different things at one time. But then again, my body, I had already damaged it a lot. I started getting pain on the left side. I couldn't move my hip. I was just dragging my left leg. I had gone to get an MRI, and the doctor said, your spine is compromised. You're not going to be able to walk again unless you have surgery. Well, I had been married to an orthopedic surgeon, and I had heard horror stories about failed back surgeries, and I did not want to be one of them. Mm-hmm. I did not want to be cut. I couldn't do any stunt driving at that time, so my insurance was dropped. I had no insurance. So I was really on my own, and I thought, okay, for 3 years I've been learning all of this healing work. Let me see if this really works. Uh-huh. So I said, I'm going to just do this, and I'm not doing surgery. I'm not doing any of the other, and I'll let you know what happens in a week or so. And so I just kind of, my son picked me up off the floor, took me to bed. I couldn't move, I couldn't sit, couldn't stand. All I could do was concentrate on healing my back. And I put a picture of a totally aligned spine in front of me, and I just breathed that in. Because again, we're in charge of what we're giving our unconscious mind. So I got into the language that I had been saying to myself, and this is really crucial for people to find out, what are you really saying to yourself that you wouldn't want anybody else to hear? And most people don't like themselves very much, or they have very low self-esteem, or they don't feel they're supported in life. And that's what mine was. I thought somehow unconsciously I got the message from my family, who had gone through the Depression and gone through a lot of poverty consciousness, that I couldn't do it on my own, that I had to have somebody else help me, that I couldn't support myself on my own. So if I'm saying that to my unconscious that's running my body, that's running my back, which is my support system, that it can't support me, guess what's going to happen?
Yeah. It's
going to collapse. So eventually that is what happened. And my spine collapsed. I had nerve damage, herniated disc. I was just a goner. I couldn't support. I couldn't stand up. And I had to start really working on those memories, and I started doing that. And there's one memory in particular that I write about in the book, where I didn't realize that, I felt like I was a baby going through being just kind of discarded. And what it turned out is that my mother, who had never said anything about it, had taken me to 3 abortion clinics. So me as the fetus had registered, that she wasn't wanted, that she was just thrown away. So that's what this memory came up of being tossed out like a piece of garbage out into the universe. And it was so overwhelmingly frightening to me, because this baby was speeding along the universe, darting through all these asteroids and meteorites and just going about 1 billion miles an hour. And then all of a sudden she was lifted up and put very gently in the hands of this being that was way above all the chaos down below of the meteorite racing, all of that stuff going on. And I felt just finally relaxed, and I felt loved, and I felt, despite the human aspect of my birth and who I was born into that family with, that there was something deeper that was loving me and giving me validation for my life, which I never had before. And I didn't know I didn't have it because it was unconscious. So my healing really started after that experience of that baby coming up out of my memory bank, and then getting in touch with my mother, who admitted that I was taken to abortion clinics, and it just was amazing. I felt relieved. I felt like there had been a an ending to that story, and I started seeing myself climbing trees again, and then getting excited about the fact that my unconscious, wow, it knows how to climb. It remembers how to be healthy again. And so once that old memory was taken out of the pipeline that went up to my higher self, then I could, the unconscious could send up this new image, this new emotion of climbing trees and having a strong back to climb trees. I don't know how the higher self does it, but the purpose of the unconscious is to get excited about the event and then send that wish or that item up, and then the higher self changes the DNA somehow and the physical body changes. Within 4 days, I completely healed. The scoliosis went away, my back healed. I went and got an x-ray, and the doctors were like flabbergasted. They didn't know what to say.
How long did it take?
It took me about 4 days.
4 days, and they told you wouldn't even be able to walk again.
Right, but I was in bed for a month. Remember, I was on codeine for the pain, just trying to get settled into finally getting these memories to come up and to come out. Once that memory was released, it was about 4 days after that I concentrated on then me climbing trees. Mm-hmm. You see, we're a pharmaceutical collection ourselves. So if we're flooding our body with, I'm climbing trees, then the unconscious is like a computer. All it's hearing is now this new machinery, this new messaging system that's coming in. And it's like a faithful computer. It will do exactly what it's told. Mm-hmm. And so once I got the old stuff out, I could start saying, well, thank you. Thank you for remembering to regenerate. Regenerate, that was the key word. And thank you for supporting me. And so it's like it went from I can't be supported to now you are supporting me. So it's like going, like the robot, supporting you. I am supporting you now. Literally, that's exactly what happens. We are in charge. We are in charge of what we say to our bodies and how they're going to respond. And wherever we're having a problem, it's like that little part is having a temper tantrum because something has gone amiss emotionally. And it could have come from, a past life, whatever, if you believe in that and you had unfinished business, you brought that back in with you to overcome it and to heal yourself from it and to move forward with a higher resolution.
Mm-hmm. You're reminding me of a song that was popular when we were kids, more than likely kids at that time. It came from the group called the Funkadelics, and I've even said it on a couple of shows. I can't say the whole title as it's said on the album, only because I like to keep the show a G-rated show, or at least a G+. The title of the song is called "Free Your Mind and Your Tuchus Will Follow."
Oh, I love it. Well, that's true.
And I love the song. Well, of course, back when I was a kid, I was actually a teenager when this song came out, and I liked it, of course, because being the rebellious teenager I was back in those days, it was like, yeah, cool, it's that song. And I listened to it, and I just went, hey, they got a point there.
That's right.
And I'm listening to what you said earlier about your meeting with Tony Robbins, and because as you were saying, if you say you can't, the expression usually is, you can't. Well, it's true, because if you say you can't, you're already telling yourself, no, I can't do it. So, as you're saying, the body, the mind is just going, okay, fine, I can't. It's no argument. It's, yeah, you can't. Fine, you can't. What's next? But Tony Robbins did, which was with you, with others, I'm quite sure he's done this with, and we don't need Tony Robbins to tell us this, but it was nice that he came along, as you say, or as the expression goes, when you're ready, the teacher will come.
Right.
It's just telling you, if you say you can't and you really want to grow, you want to be something more than what you have been taught in your life, or whatever you've accepted in your life, then it is your duty to do it. You must do it. So this is what Belinda's been talking about all this time. I'm just kind of wrapping this up for the first half of the show here. So we're about to go into a break. And when we come back, we're going to let Belinda get into what she has learned, and that's a lot of information right there. But we're going to continue on with that, and I have a subject matter I want to talk to her about when we come back. So please stay tuned, and we'll be right back with Belinda Farrell of Find Your Friggin Joy.
Do you get writer's block or tongue-tied when you try to write or talk? Need a wordsmith for a script, article, or research paper? Let K-Wave 6 Productions help you with all of your audio, visual, editing, and language translation needs for your business or hobby. Does the thought of creating a website give you chills? We also have webmasters to help you with all your website needs. Remember K-Wave 6 Productions. www.kwave6productions.tk or email us at info.kwave6productions.tk.
Hi, this is Amy Young of JSJ Phone. We are providers of Junior, iPhone, iPad, iPod, also Samsung, Sony, Nokia parts and accessories at very good quality and low prices. We sell to individuals, and companies have 3 to 5 days delivery time by DHL or UPS. We do delivery in 24 hours after payment confirmed. For more information, see our website www.jsjphone.com www.jsjphone.com. Contact me, Amy Young, mailbox emy@jsjphone.com or by phone 0086 134 186969395, by Skype emy.yang2012.
Hi, and welcome back. Welcome back to the K-Wave 6 radio program. And today, again, my guest is Belinda Farrell, the author of the book Find Your Friggin Joy. She's a Huna healer, and she swims with the Dolphins every year, and she takes people with her. Before we get into the last half of the show, as we get back into the last half of the show, there are some things that Belinda had spoken about before the break. And I'd like for her to touch on these a little bit. But coming from my own experience, we're talking about freedom and responsibility, accepting yourself, and just living daily. In other words, not the anxiety of what am I going to do tomorrow, and the depression of what I did yesterday is going to bite me in my tuchus and all that kind of stuff. Just, I have right now. Yesterday I can't change, and tomorrow hasn't come, so I can't live it yet. So what I'm actually getting in is because I'm going to use an example. This was several years ago. I bought a motorcycle, and I used to live in Chicago, and I would travel just about any place in the country on this motorcycle. And it was 1100cc motorcycle and so on and so forth. And we went from 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds and all that kind of good stuff. And my mother used to say, "Aren't you afraid of living or driving a motorcycle?" And I said, "Actually, I find it to be more freeing than driving a car." And she goes, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, for me, I don't have that false sense of security of I have metal wrapped around me and all the rest of that. I am freer but I also have more responsibility to see what's going on around me. So I have to look in the mirrors. I have to watch who's driving near or close by, because I don't have that security. I'm sitting on top of a machine, not inside of one. So for me, it was actually more freedom to that, because I'm out in the open, but I also have a greater responsibility, because actually responsibility is more freeing than just saying, I don't have any responsibility at all, because you just gave up everything.
Well, that's the first premise of Huna.
Yeah. I didn't know that, but...
Yeah.
But, yeah, actually take it from there, because I could probably drag that one up too long.
Well, when you say responsibility, the first thing to accept when you're learning Huna is that you have to be responsible for everything that you've created in your life. And that means if you're in a car accident, if whatever it is that comes in, if you can take some responsibility, even unconsciously, for having created it, then you can take responsibility for uncreating it, uncreating the meaning of what happened to you. It again, instead of blaming, you're taking responsibility, and it's a huge burden to lift off, because then everything is on your shoulders. And then, so you have to decide, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to be angry today? Do I want to create this anger so that more angry people will be attracted to me? Mm-hmm. I mean, you'll find that when you soften yourself, and when you forgive yourself, and when you say the words, I love you, I forgive you, and you use it as a mantra during the day, that really just good things come into that vibration, because your thoughts are creating the vibration that is attracted to you at every moment. So I love that word, responsibility.
Well, yeah, I learned that some time ago, because a lot of people in our daily lives, they will cause a problem or whatever, and it's not my responsibility, or as I used to hear when I was in upper management, it's their fault, it's their fault, it's their fault. Everybody loves pointing the finger at somebody else, but never at themselves. And I used to say in these meetings, we know who did it. They're already going through their own guilt about it. We're here to solve the problem, not to keep assigning it to the person who did it.
Right.
So.
But it's a very hard one. My son, loved to blame everybody but himself. Mm-hmm. And he saw me heal my body. He saw me heal my back. But yet he went through Western medicine and went through 2 failed back surgeries. And then got addicted to painkillers, which eventually took his life. Right. So it was a very difficult thing to watch that and not be able to change his perspective. He didn't want to change it.
Yeah.
And like I say, we can't help sometimes the closest people, our families, the people we love the most. So we have to accept them exactly the way they are. And, that was a grief that I just still go through. Grief is like the ocean. It comes in waves, and you never know when it's going to hit you again. But that's what got me to write my book, because I finally, after my son passed away, that was 6 years ago, I could not even do the Huna on myself. I had so much grief that I was being burdened with the heaviness of this grief, of this sadness. And again, you have to go through whatever you're going through. The storm is you've got to wait out the storm. And somebody dragged me to see Dr. Eric Pearl in this film called The Living Matrix, and I watched him with just kind of pulling and stretching something around this little boy that was in a wheelchair with cerebral palsy. He had had it all his life. And after 3 sessions of doing this reconnective healing that he was talking about, this little boy got out of the wheelchair and went and played on the playground for the first time and held a cup in his hand. And this was like a miracle to this mother. They were in Greece. Yeah. And I was so taken back from it. I had learned Huna 20 years before, and it was the same kind of feeling. I have to learn this. I have to learn this. So I started researching. I went back to Chicago, got training in it. I also had a session of the reconnective healing myself, and in that session, my grief was lifted. And the person didn't even know what I was struggling with. That's the beauty of this, is that the less you know about a person, the more you see them as a whole being anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So the frequencies were able to come and to move away what was bothering me the most and put me back into a feeling of balance again. But I got my joy back because I was light. When you're heavy, oh my gosh, there's no way you can be happy. And so all of a sudden I had my lightness back, my joy back. And I went back, got training, started doing the reconnective healing and the reconnection. And my life just kind of transformed from that moment on. And I've been doing this type of healing ever since. Also teaching, the forgiveness and the Huna, which I still respect more than anything because they were the original teachings. We're just carrying it on to kind of a higher, like stepping up on another stairway, maybe bringing these higher divine frequencies to us quicker and cleaner. And, sometimes we grow that way. We have to change the way we're looking at something and shift and do it another way.
Indeed. Speaking of that sounds like a perfect way to get into telling us about how you actually found out about Huna Healing and how you actually convinced the Hawaiians to teach you.
And that was a job.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I go to Hawaii for all this training, and it was in hypnosis and neurolinguistics first, and timeline therapy and past life regression, and then the Huna just kind of dribbled in. The elders came in and they started doing this chanting, and I just kind of looked up inquisitively to find out, wow, these are early teachings. These are before we got our hands on them, and this is the stuff that when they didn't have any mental illness they were doing, so they must have had some secrets, and Huna means secret. These were the ancient healing secrets. So the chants were what really intrigued me, and I started learning how to do the ipuheke, which is the drumming for the chanters. I'd first started out doing the hula, but then graduated to wanting to learn how to do the drumming, and then I wanted to learn the chants. And
Let me stop you there for a second.
Yeah.
You said hula, and most people are thinking hula is the hula hoop. So.
Oh, yeah, the dancing, the hula.
Okay.
Yeah, I was doing the hula and, just doing that, which a lot of the tourists do. And, it's fine, it's beautiful. But I was intrigued by the drum.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I started taking lessons with the drum. But he said, no, we can't teach you the chants. And I went, why not? Because you howly.
Mm-hmm.
You're without breath. And anyway, I wouldn't go away. I would come at 4 a.m. and just sit on his doorstep.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of these stubborn howlies that knew that I was supposed to learn these chants, that I didn't have a chance. Maybe in another lifetime I was too frivolous and running around and being distracted, but in this lifetime I had to come and learn these chants. So eventually he gave in and he taught them to me. Mm-hmm. And as soon as the chant grabs you, you are possessed by that chant. The chant doesn't leave you. The chant chants you. So when I feel that I'm doing a chant, I'm not the only one chanting. It's the lineage of all of the elders that preceded me that are chanting with me, because my voice literally changes. Mm-hmm. and it goes deeper and it's just more from another time. So it was just, again, that's just what had to happen. And I learned the chants, and I still had a fear of water. And it was interesting because during a higher self connection, which had to do with the breathing and just bringing in this higher divine instrument that is in all of us, I had this vision of dolphins and whales coming into my psyche. And I was like, where did that come from? Because I've never had visions of me going out in the water and being with dolphins or whales. Never. I was afraid of water. I never even told Tony Robbins that I was afraid of water because I was so embarrassed. That was my biggest fear, was water. Mm-hmm. And here I am in Hawaii, and I'm surrounded by water. So these dolphins and whales are coming into my psyche now, and then when I'm dreaming at night, they're invading my dream time. They're coming into my dream time and teaching me how to swim, and I'm swimming with them underwater. And so when I wake up, I've got this yearning to go out to be with them, but yet I'm afraid of the water. But I got to go out to be with the dolphins, but I'm afraid of the water. So it was a real struggle to finally, they recruited me. They got me out there, and then as soon as I was out there with them, I lost my fear of the water. And then they started teaching me how to dive, and that's how that all came to be. I was afraid of my emotions because we're 80% water, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so the emotions were where I never went. I was always too distracted by, doing all these activities that I never took time to go inside and clean myself up until I discovered the Huna, the secret, the forgiveness, and then the dolphins led me out into the ocean where I became comfortable again with the water and the nurturing part of us.
That's wonderful. And when we come back from this last break, I'm going to ask Belinda to continue with this with the dolphins, because that's where she's going. Yes. And, well, by time, might as well say it now that I've started it. By the time this airs, you will already be there. Anyhow, we're going to talk about the dolphins when you come back, and also you have this wonderful story to tell us about this doctor of psychiatry. So when we come back, Belinda will tell us this story. And so stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Are you ready to put an end to thinking about how you wish it were and take action? Take this step to find out more by going to coachingbyria.com. And you can receive your free consultation session with Coach Ria. Coach Ria is a certified professional life coach with a passion to help make the difference in the world.
Hi, this is Megan Serleski, author of Who Am I? How My Daughter Taught Me to Let Go and Live Again. And I am on K-Wave 6 Radio.
Hi, and welcome back to K-Wave 6 Radio. We're with my guest today, Belinda Farrell. Find Your Friggin Joy, the book, and Huna Healing. We were talking about Huna Healing just before we took the break, and she started talking about swimming with the dolphins and whales and how that helped her overcome her fear of water. And she has one more thing to talk about, which I'm going to let her choose which way it goes for the last few minutes. And Belinda, air is yours.
Oh, thank you. Well, as soon as we start talking about dolphins, I hear frequencies, just like I hear birds, or hear hummingbirds. The dolphins have a frequency that is conductive through the water, and when you're swimming in their proximity, you get the frequency, and whatever you're holding, they look at you like a piece of sheet music, and there are chords that are in dissonance, and they want to put you back into harmony, because they don't have the beta talk that humans have. They don't have that self-talk, you're no good, or I'm sad, or I'm this, da-da-da-da. They just have the theta and the alpha going on. So they're like in a meditative state when they come back from feeding. And they're in this just calm, beautiful state of playfulness, making love, whatever that is. And then they go into these chitter and chatters and high-pitched sounds and chortles. And so you're affected by that. In fact, your heart just opens up. It's kind of dangerous because whoever you're around, you're going to fall in love with them. You might get married, just right there in that experience with the dolphins. And it's just a feeling that you can't get anywhere else. The whales have it too. I swam with the whales in Tonga. This was it was for my 60th birthday. I was going to say many years ago. But they have a different vibration. The dolphins are kind of playful and you feel so happy when you're with them. The whales are just more serious and huge, just huge. We were able to get into the water with them because it's not illegal. It's not against the law in Tonga to do that. But there's still a protocol where you don't surround them. You're just on one side of them. We swam with a mother and a baby, humpback, for over an hour. The baby would come up and play with us. The mother would go down below, and she would lay vertical with one eye open to watch her baby, watch us, and then come up and then take a good look at us. And the eye was like this huge camera that would just go back and forth, just scanning you. And it just made you feel like you were so tiny, just like a tiny speck. And I had a whale come underneath me and balance me on its nose, just like being beached. And I just recently saw it was YouTube, or there was a video of a kayaker in Argentina where they were surrounded by whales, and the whale came under the kayak and just let it sit on the top of the whale. That's what the whale did to me. And I'm a swimmer, not in a boat. And I was scared. I have to say I was scared. I wish I'd had a camera at that time. But it just stayed there for a little while, gurgling and, grunting, and then just slipped down and then just floated away. But it was an amazing interaction, an amazing experience that I will absolutely never forget. And my girlfriend takes people to Tonga to swim with the whales. And I would love to do it again if I didn't not like boats so much. I'd rather be in the water. I still do get kind of nauseous when I'm in a boat for a really long time.
Yeah.
I have an inner ear kind of problem. But again, we're talking of frequencies, and that's what we do to make changes. So when I do reconnective healing, I'm helping to change the frequencies of your DNA so that you get back into balance. When we go out swimming with the dolphins, we're out there and the dolphins are changing our frequencies so that we're more loving, that we connect more as a pod, because that's what we watch them, and they're in the water all together. Somebody takes the lead and the dolphins just follow. There's no fight for power. There's no struggle. When one feels that they want to lead, they follow. When somebody else feels they want to lead, the pod follows. It's really just a beautiful synchronicity of watching nature and how you can watch birds in flight, how one will take the lead and everyone follows, and then another goes another way. You don't see this, fighting and warlike thing, I guess, unless they're fighting for a female. But but
Always
not
gotta
as
fight for a female, don't we?
Yeah, that's going to happen even in the dolphins. If the humpback whale comes in, the spinner dolphins, the males get the females out of there because they don't want them mating with the humpbacks. So again, there's a neighborly kind of struggle going on between different breeds of dolphins, but for the most part they're very loving, and you respect them, and you respect them in their bedroom, because in the morning when we go to swim with them, we have to watch what kind of mood they're in. Do they want to sleep? Because then we don't disturb, we just observe. Are they in the dream time? Are they making love? Are they playing with us? Are they throwing bubbles at us? It's just the most amazing fun time. And I take clients. I take one client a week, and I'll be taking I have 3 different weeks, 3 different clients, and 1 week to myself. And 2 of the ladies have been with me before for other levels of Huna, because I do the teachings of Huna as well as the reconnective healing during that time. So it's a really quite an adventure between the swimming and the healing and the Huna, and it's off the beaten path, that's for sure.
Definitely the way I like it.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Before we run out of time, and I get too wrapped up in listening to this, because you know I love to listen to your stories, or should I say experiences? Experiences is better. Tell us about this doctor you were telling me about it while we were off air before the show began.
Well, it's a doctor that has gone around the country making popular Ho'oponopono, and he is of Hawaiian descent. He learned about Ho'oponopono from Morna Simeona, which was my teacher as well. Morna died in 1992 in Germany, but she passed on this forgiveness process. She popularized it so that we could forgive ourselves together with our higher self, to clean ourselves on the inside and change the perception on the outside. So Dr. Len, this is his full name is Dr. E. Hiliakala Len, and he was assigned, he was a psychologist, he was assigned to a mental hospital, Hawaiian therapist, and these were mentally ill people who were there. It was a Hawaiian state hospital. He worked at that hospital for 4 years, and they kept only the criminally insane there. So it was really a dangerous place. And a lot of employees would quit, psychologists would quit on a monthly basis, and they just call in sick, or they just would not show up to work. So it wasn't a pleasant place to live or work or visit. And Dr. Len never saw any patients. Now he told this to an author called Joe Vitale, who wrote the book eventually called Zero Limits, based on the experience that Dr. Len had at this mental hospital. So Dr. Len agreed to have his office there, but he would review the files of all these people, but he would never see a patient. He would take their file and he would look at it and he would say, what is it in me that is the same as in this other man or this other woman? And so he would just start cleaning himself and taking responsibility that he had probably a seed of whatever that patient was holding. He was taking responsibility of what he saw with his eyes to clean up the perception within himself. And he would do the I love you, I forgive you, I'm sorry. And he would do it over and over and over again. And the patients started to get better. They started to get better. They were being released. The staff was shocked. Eventually, after 3 to 4 years, the hospital completely closed because the people got well, or a couple of them were transferred to another facility. So it works when you clean yourself on the inside, and that's what he started to popularize Ho'oponopono and to teach it like I've been doing for 25 years, because it works. It frees you, it changes the perception of whoever you're thinking about. And again, it's like a relationship resolution process. Joe Vitale started doing it himself, and he didn't believe in any of this. He was, a writer, an innovator, a businessman, not into any woo-woo kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But he just silently said, he started saying, I'm sorry, I love you. Didn't say it to anyone in particular, but just said it as a mantra, as I do. And he just, he didn't take any outward action to get apologies or evoke anything at all from the other person. It was just simply evoking the spirit of love within himself, just as we do. We just evoke by saying, I love you, I forgive you, I'm sorry, thank you. And then he would notice that the problem would disappear, or the person would call him back and apologize for insulting him or saying something, that was inappropriate. He never said anything to that person. He would just clean himself.
The reason why I asked Belinda to actually talk about this, because before the show, she and I were talking as we love to do with each other. And I was telling her about a show that I want to do. Whether or not I'm going to do it, I don't know at this point. But it's a thought because it just came up just a few days ago that I think it was yesterday I was thinking about maybe I ought to do a show on this. But I'm at a point where I'm just really sick and tired of hearing people taking sides with this Middle East conflict that's going on, a war, if you prefer, between Israel and the Palestinians and Islam and all the rest of this, and what's going on in Russia and Ukraine and every place else in the world. And even if you want to take a look at it from what's going on in the United States and other places where police, it hits YouTube like crazy about police, or some police, not all police, are taking their authority too far, and they're beating up people, they're killing people, and all the rest of this. And everybody wants to take a side, and everybody else is bad. We're getting back to what we were talking about before break, about pointing the finger at everybody else, but not taking the responsibility for anything that we're doing. And what Belinda just got through talking about is how everybody wants a better world to live in, but what are you doing to change that world? Here's one thing that you can do that's just so easy right at home.
Well, again, there is no out there. You know, we call it, there's this problem out there. The problem is inside us.
Mm-hmm.
So if we clean that part of ourselves, then we're going to look at whatever it is out there in a different way.
Indeed. Well, actually, Belinda, we ran out of time, but I'm going to ask you right here, right now, and I didn't ask you this before, how would you like to come back about once every 6 weeks or so and do a show with us? We can ask the listeners to send in questions, topics, whatever, to the radio show, and you can address them from there. Would you be willing to do that?
Oh, absolutely. That would be an absolute honor.
Wonderful.
I would love that. Love that. The more questions, the better.
Yeah. So, you heard it, folks. Unscripted. I didn't ask her before the show. You have any questions, you want to direct them towards Belinda, send them in to info@kwave6radio. It's kwave6, the number 6, radio.tk. And we'll plan on something she's going to be gone for the month of August, so September, October, when she's back and she's relaxed and she's ready to get going, we can work at it from there. In the meantime, before we go, I'm going to mention a few little things here. I get a lot of my guests through radioguestlist.com. They asked that we just kind of throw that on the show there a little bit. So I think that's where Belinda and I may have met. I don't remember exactly. No. We're also members on LinkedIn and a few other places, so I'm not sure exactly where we found each other. But if you have any questions, you want to learn more about K-Wave 6 Radio, just kwave6radio.tk, and you'll find all the links to the shows, this current one and all the previous shows, from podcast to YouTube, and you can become a subscriber to any one of the venues that are there. Choose that, and you can also subscribe to our blog and get all of your notifications in your own email. So, with that, Belinda, once again, thank you for being here, and we'll see you soon. Hope everything goes well while you're there in Hawaii.
Oh, thank you.
And
it's been such fun. I don't know where the time went, and then since there is no time, then the concept of time just flew by our psyches.
Indeed. And we'll look forward to having you back again soon. And wish you well in everything that you do, as always. And everyone, thank you for being here with us, and we'll see you again soon. Be well.
Thank you for being part of our audience. For more information about K-Wave 6 Radio and the services we offer, go to www.kwave6radio.tk. Have a wonderful day.